I am the new owner of this company, the rich man mocked, but discovering her identity made him tremble. Emily Carter never imagined that at 19 she would be walking into the most luxurious office in New York to claim what was rightfully hers. Laughter echoed through the glass and steel environment as four men in impeccable suits looked at her with disdain and amusement. It was when she uttered the words that changed everything that Tuesday morning. I am the new owner of this company. The laughter of the main manager, Derek Hamilton, grew even louder and more mocking. Little girl, are you lost? Said Derek, wiping a tear from laughing so hard. The snack bar is on the ground floor. The other three executives burst into laughter. Marcus Thompson, the financial director, shook his head in disbelief. Nathan Brooks, in charge of operations, couldn't stop laughing. Vincent Palmer, the commercial director, made a gesture as if to call security. Emily remained motionless in the center of the room, her military backpack on her back and her camouflage uniform contrasting dramatically with the sophisticated corporate environment. Her blonde hair was tied in a simple ponytail, and her blue eyes maintained a calmness that was disconcerting. I am not joking, she said, her firm voice cutting through the laughter. This company legally belongs to me. Oh, of course. Derek slapped the table, still laughing. And I'm the president of the country. Boys, are you seeing this? The girl thinks she owns Hamilton and Associates. Marcus approached, still smiling. Sweetheart, how old are you? 17? 18? Go back to school and let the adults work. 19, replied Emily without flinching, and I have all the documents that prove my ownership. Nathan guffawed louder. Documents? What documents? Did you print something at school? Vincent gestured to the security guards who appeared at the door. Guys, we have a lost minor here. Can you escort her to the exit? Wait, said a female voice from the door. Everyone turned to see Mrs. Elizabeth, the 62-year-old executive secretary who had worked at the company for over 20 years. Her grey hair was carefully styled, and her serious expression contrasted with the mocking atmosphere. What is it, Elizabeth? Asked Derek, still with a smile on his face. Do you know this child? Mrs. Elizabeth approached slowly, her eyes fixed on Emily. May I see the documents the young lady mentioned? Elizabeth, don't indulge her fantasy, said Marcus, impatient. We have important meetings today. Emily opened her backpack and took out a worn leather folder. Here are the property transfer certificates, the will and the notary records. Mrs. Elizabeth took the papers with trembling hands and began to examine each page carefully. The smile on Derek's face began to fade as he noticed the secretary's serious expression. They're all authentic, murmured Mrs. Elizabeth, her voice almost a whisper. What? Derek snatched the papers from her hands. This is impossible. Let me see this. As he read, his face grew paler and paler. The other three executives approached, their expressions changing from amusement to concern. This can't be real, said Nathan nervously. These documents, they look fake. The signature here. Mrs. Elizabeth pointed to a document, her hands trembling slightly. I recognize this signature. It's Colonel Carter's. A sepulchral silence fell over the room. Derek looked up from the papers, his face now completely white. Colonel Carter? Asked Vincent, confused. What does Colonel Carter have to do with this? Emily took a step forward. Colonel William Carter was my father. He founded this company in 1992 when he left the army. Your father? Derek swallowed hard. But that's impossible. Mrs. Elizabeth went to her personal file and took out a framed photograph. In the image, a man in a military uniform smiled next to a younger man in a suit. This photo was taken on the day the company was inaugurated, she said, her voice choked. Your father always spoke of you, Emily. He said that one day you would return to claim what was yours. Marcus picked up the photograph, comparing it to the documents. But wait. Colonel Carter sold his shares to Derek 5 years ago. How can she be the owner? Because the sale was conditional, explained Emily, her voice gaining strength. My father stipulated that if anything happened to him before I turned 21, the company would automatically revert to me. Derek shook his head violently. No, that's not in the contracts I signed. I am the legitimate owner." "You are the owner only as long as my father was alive," said Emily, taking another document from the folder. "This is the codicil to the will, filed with the notary at the same time as the sale." Nathan approached Derek. "Did you know about this? Did you know about this clause?" "Of course not," shouted Derek, but his expression betrayed nervousness. "If I had known, I would never have accepted those terms." Vincent examined the documents more closely. "Derek, your signature is here, acknowledging all the clauses of the contract." I didn't read every page in detail," admitted Derek, visibly sweating. "My lawyer said everything was normal." Emily remained calm, watching the growing agitation of the men. "My father was a military strategist. He would never leave his company unprotected." Mrs. Elizabeth became emotional. "He always said you were as smart as he was, that one day you'd return to continue his work." "Continue what work?" asked Marcus, still trying to process the situation. "The company has changed a lot in the last 5 years." "I know," said Emily. "And that's exactly why I'm here." Derek tried to regain his composure. "Even if these documents are real, you're just a girl. You have no experience. You don't know the market. You don't—" "I don't know?" Emily interrupted him, her voice taking on a firmer tone. "I've been watching this company for 3 months. I know every client, every supplier, every problem you've been facing." Nathan laughed nervously. "Watching? What are you talking about?" "You lost the contract with Alderwood Construction last week," said Emily without consulting any notes. "The official reason was price, but the truth is they were unhappy with the delivery delays." The 4 men exchanged surprised looks. Vincent cleared his throat. "How do you know that?" "Because I was there when Mr. Alderwood called to cancel the contract," replied Emily. "I've been working in the cafeteria at the Alderwood Construction building for 2 months. Marcus was dumbfounded. "You were spying on us?" "I was preparing," corrected Emily. "My father taught me that information is power. Before assuming any position, you must know the terrain." Derek tried to discredit her words. "Even if you have some information, that doesn't mean you can run a company." "Maybe not," admitted Emily. "But I can learn, and more importantly, I can trust the right people to help me." She turned to Mrs. Elizabeth. "You knew my father better than anyone. What would he do if he were here now?" Mrs. Elizabeth smiled for the first time since she had arrived. "He would say the first thing to do is a complete audit of the finances from the last 5 years." Derek's face paled even more. "An audit? Why would that be necessary?" "Because," said Emily, taking a different folder from her backpack, "I already know something is wrong with the accounts." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Marcus approached nervously. "What do you mean by something is wrong?" Emily opened the second folder and spread several papers on the glass table. "Comparing the public tax reports with the bank movements I managed to access, there are significant discrepancies." "You can't have access to the company accounts," protested Derek. "Actually, I can," said Emily, showing a bank document. "As the legal heir, I requested access to the company's financial information a week ago. The bank released everything after verifying my documentation." Nathan picked up one of the papers, examining it carefully. "These numbers, they don't match the internal reports we see." Vincent looked over Nathan's shoulder. "Derek, can you explain this difference of $200,000 in the operational account?" That must be some accounting error," stammered Derek. "I'll check with the finance department." Mrs. Elizabeth approached the documents. "May I see the bank statements?" Emily handed the papers to the secretary, who began examining them with an increasingly worried expression. "Derek," said Mrs. Elizabeth, her voice trembling with contained anger, "why are there regular transfers to a personal account of yours?" They're bonuses approved by the board," said Derek, sweating profusely. Marcus stared at him angrily. "What bonuses? We never approved any extra bonuses for you." "You approved them indirectly," Derek tried to justify himself. "When you delegated financial management to me, that included the decision on executive compensation." Nathan slammed his fist on the table. "Executive compensation of $200,000 a month. Are you crazy? It's not 200,000 per month, shouted Derek. It's accumulated amounts over the years. Emily remained calm, watching the argument intensify. Actually, she said, interrupting the fight, it's exactly $215,000 per month for the last 18 months. Everyone turned to her. Vincent asked, "How do you know with such precision?" "Because I made a detailed spreadsheet of all the transactions," replied Emily, pulling out more documents. "Every transfer, every date, every amount." Mrs. Elizabeth examined the spreadsheet, her expression growing increasingly indignant. "Derek, this is almost $4 million diverted from the company." "They weren't diverted," protested Derek. "They were legitimate compensation for my work." Marcus laughed sarcastically. "Work? What work justifies this fortune?" "I saved this company from bankruptcy," shouted Derek. "When I took over, you were losing money." "It's true the company was in trouble," admitted Nathan, "but it doesn't justify these absurd amounts." Emily addressed Derek directly. "The problem isn't just the amount. The problem is that these transfers correspond exactly to the money that should have been invested in equipment modernization." Vincent looked at her in surprise. "How do you know about the modernization plans?" "Because I found my father's original projects," said Emily. "He had planned every necessary investment to keep the company competitive." Mrs. Elizabeth nodded emotionally. "Your father talked a lot about those plans. He said it was the company's future." Derek tried to defend himself. "Those plans were obsolete. The market changed. The priorities changed." "The only things that changed," said Emily, her voice gaining authority, "were your personal priorities." Marcus examined the planning documents. "These projects are brilliant. If we had implemented this, we'd be years ahead of the competition." Nathan shook his head with regret. "Instead, we stagnated while our competitors passed us by." "We didn't stagnate," protested Derek. "We kept the company running." "Running poorly," corrected Vincent, looking at the numbers with growing irritation. "We lost 15% of market share in the last 2 years." Emily walked over to the window, looking at the city below. "My father used to say a company is like a living organism. If it doesn't grow, it slowly dies." Mrs. Elizabeth became emotional. "He always used that metaphor. He said a businessman who doesn't invest in the future is digging his own grave." Derek realized he was losing ground quickly. "Even if you're right about the investments, that doesn't change the fact that I'm the legal owner." "Actually," said Emily, producing another document, "you were never the legal owner. You were only a temporary administrator." Marcus took the document, reading it carefully. "Derek, this contract is very clear. You have only administrative powers, not ownership." "That's impossible," shouted Derek. "My lawyer assured me I would be the owner." Nathan examined the papers. "Your lawyer didn't read the fine print, or you didn't read what he wrote." Vincent pointed to a specific section. "Look here, Derek. It clearly states, transfer of administrative rights conditional upon approval of the legal heir." Derek snatched the document from Vincent's hands, reading desperately. "But this wasn't in the contract I signed." Mrs. Elizabeth stepped closer. "Yes, it was, Derek. I typed that contract myself. You signed every page." "You knew." Derek stared at her angrily. "You knew I would never be the true owner." "Of course I knew," replied Mrs. Elizabeth with dignity. "Colonel Carter explained the whole plan to me. You were only to be the guardian until his daughter was ready." Marcus shook his head in disbelief. "So for these 5 years, you thought you had bought the company, but you were really just a very highly paid employee." Derek collapsed into a chair, the reality finally hitting him. "I invested everything I had in this company. I sold my house, took out loans, to buy something that could never be yours," said Nathan with a mixture of pity and irritation. Emily turned from the window. "Do you have a family, Derek?" I have a wife and 2 children," he replied, visibly shaken. "Where do they think you got the money for that lifestyle?" asked Emily. Derek stared at her, confused. "How do you know about my lifestyle?" "Because I investigated everything about you," said Emily calmly. "The house in the luxury gated community, the imported car, the trips abroad. All of that cost far more than your official salary could cover." Marcus stepped closer menacingly. "Derek, You told us you had substantial personal savings. And I did, protested Derek. Until I invested it all in this company. Vincent laughed bitterly. So you spent your savings buying a company, and then spent the company's money maintaining your lifestyle. Nathan completed the thought. In other words, you stole from us to pay your own debts. It wasn't theft, shouted Derek, desperate. It was just an advance on future profits. Mrs. Elizabeth shook her head with disdain. An advance on profits that never existed because you blocked the necessary investments. Emily returned to the center of the room. You created a destructive cycle. You took money from the company, blocked investments. The company lost competitiveness, lost clients, lost revenue. Then, you took more money to compensate. Marcus was red with anger. And we, like idiots, believed all your explanations about market problems. The market really was tough. Tried to defend himself, Derek. Nathan pointed to Emily's documents. Hard for us, but our competitors grew 20% in the same period. Vincent slammed the table. Because they invested in modernization while we were funding your life of luxury. Derek stood up abruptly. You don't understand the pressure I was facing. My wife, my children expected a standard of living befitting my position. Your position as temporary manager of a company that was never yours? Asked Emily with subtle irony. Mrs. Elizabeth sighed sadly. Derek, I tried to warn you several times about the excessive spending. You always told me not to meddle in administrative matters. Because you didn't understand the pressures of the market, retorted Derek. Marcus laughed sarcastically. The pressures of the luxury car and country house market? Nathan approached Emily. What do you intend to do now? About the company? About us? About him? Emily looked at each of the men before answering. First, I'm going to implement the modernization plans my father had prepared. Vincent became interested. Are those plans still viable? Haven't they become obsolete? Actually, they've become even more necessary, replied Emily. Technology has evolved in a way that some investments have become cheaper and more effective. Marcus examined the projects again. Do you have any idea how much it would cost to implement all this? I do, said Emily. Approximately $3,800,000. Nathan did the math quickly. Almost exactly what Derek embezzled from the company. Derek paled even more. I can return the money. I can sell the house, the car. Even selling everything, said Emily. You wouldn't be able to cover even half of the embezzled amount. Vincent asked, And what do you intend to do with us? Are we going to lose our jobs? Emily surprised them with her answer. Why would you lose them? You are good professionals who were deceived like I was. Marcus was confused. But we didn't question the irregularities. We were negligent. You trusted someone who seemed trustworthy, said Emily. My father always said that betrayed trust is one of the worst forms of violence. Mrs. Elizabeth became emotional again. He really used to say that, especially after a partner tried to cheat him in the company's early years. Nathan became interested. What story is that? It's a long story, said Mrs. Elizabeth. But it explains why Colonel Carter created so many legal safeguards. Derek tried one last gambit. Even if you implement these plans, it will take years to recover the company. I can help in this transition. Vincent laughed incredulously. Help? After everything you've done? I know the clients, the suppliers, the processes, argued Derek desperately. Marcus looked at him with disdain. And we don't? We've worked here for years, Nathan added. The difference is that we worked honestly. Emily interrupted the discussion. There's something more you need to know about Derek. Everyone turned to her, expectant. He didn't act alone, said Emily, dropping the bombshell. A tense silence filled the room. Mrs. Elizabeth was the first to speak. What do you mean? Emily opened a third folder. The bank transfers show that part of the embezzled money went to a second account, registered in the name of a consulting company. Marcus took the documents, examining them quickly. Business Consulting Partners LLC, never heard of it. Because it's a shell company, explained Emily, created specifically to launder the money embezzled from our company. Vincent stepped closer, interested. How did you discover this? My father taught me that where there's crime there are always accomplices, said Emily. No one embezzles that amount of money alone. Derek was now visibly nervous. This is speculation. You can't prove anything. Nathan laughed sarcastically. She just showed the bank transfers, Derek. What more proof do you want? Mrs. Elizabeth examined the documents carefully. The address of this consulting company is the same address as your accountant, Derek. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Your accountant was involved in the scheme? He's not just my accountant, protested Derek. He's the accountant for several companies. Vincent pointed to the papers. But this shell company only received money from our company. Very convenient. Emily addressed Derek directly. Are you going to tell me voluntarily who else is involved, or will I have to find out on my own? Derek hesitated, looking nervously at the others. I don't know what you're talking about. Nathan stepped closer, threateningly. Derek, you'd better cooperate. We've already discovered so much that the rest is just a matter of time. And the longer it takes us to discover the full truth, added Marcus, the worse it will be for you. Mrs. Elizabeth reached for the phone. I'm going to call the company lawyer. He needs to know about all of this. No, shouted Derek, desperate. Don't call anyone yet. Vincent eyed him suspiciously. Why not? What else are you hiding? Emily remained calm, observing every reaction. Let him speak. I'm sure he has a lot to tell us. Derek sat down heavily, running his hands through his hair. You don't understand the situation I got myself into. Marcus crossed his arms. Then explain it so we can understand. When I took over the company, began Derek, I discovered there were undeclared debts. Nathan became interested. What debts? Debts to suppliers, overdue taxes, bank loans the colonel had taken out in his final months, explained Derek. Mrs. Elizabeth shook her head. That's not true. I handled all of the colonel's finances. There were no hidden debts. Derek looked at her desperately. Elizabeth, you didn't know everything. There were operations he kept secret. Emily stepped closer. What operations? Investments in other companies, personal loans, risky investments, said Derek quickly. Vincent examined the original documents again. There's no mention of any of these investments in the will papers, Marcus agreed. If there were significant debts, they would be listed in the inventory. Derek realized his attempt to divert attention wasn't working. You don't understand. I needed the money to cover these problems. Nathan laughed bitterly. So you decided to solve invented problems with money stolen from the company? They weren't invented problems, shouted Derek. Emily interrupted the argument. Show us these debts. Derek hesitated. I don't have the documents here. Mrs. Elizabeth sighed. Derek, you're lying, and you're lying badly. Marcus stepped closer threateningly. Enough stalling. You stole the money, created this shell company with your accountant, and now you're making up excuses. Vincent finished. The only question left is, who else was involved in this scheme? Emily sat in the chair across from Derek, looking directly into his eyes. Mr. Hamilton, I'm going to make a proposal. Everyone paid attention. Derek looked at her nervously. What proposal? If you tell me the whole truth now, said Emily calmly, I will not involve the authorities immediately. Nathan protested. Emily, he stole almost $4 million. He can't go unpunished. I didn't say he will go unpunished, clarified Emily. I said I will not involve the authorities immediately. Marcus became interested. What's the difference? The difference is that he will have the chance to return the money and repair the damages before facing legal consequences, explained Emily. Vincent shook his head. He already admitted he can't even return half the amount. Emily smiled for the first time since she had arrived. Ah, but I wasn't just talking about the money he stole. Derek looked at her, confused. What are you talking about then? I'm talking about the money his accomplices stole as well, said Emily, leaving everyone speechless. Mrs. Elizabeth almost dropped the papers she was holding. Other accomplices? Nathan approached Emily. You found more people involved? I discovered this scheme is much bigger than it appears, said Emily, pulling a fourth folder from her backpack. Marcus picked up the new documents, examining them quickly. My God, there are transfers to at least 6 different accounts. Vincent looked over his shoulder. And the amounts are much larger than we thought. Derek was now visibly trembling. How did you... How did you get this information? Emily stood up, walking again toward the window. My father wasn't just a military man, Mr. Derrick. He was an intelligence specialist. Mrs. Elizabeth nodded proudly. Colonel Carter worked on complex investigations in the army. Nathan became interested. And he taught you these techniques? Since I was little, confirmed Emily. He said, information is the most powerful weapon that exists. Marcus continued examining the documents. These accounts, some belong to people I know. Vincent quickly approached. Who? One belongs to our former legal director, Brian Mitchell, said Marcus, pale. Nathan remembered. Brian left the company 2 years ago, citing a better offer, didn't he? Mrs. Elizabeth confirmed. He left right after the suspicious transfers began. Derrick tried to defend himself. Brian discovered the irregularities. He threatened to expose everything. Emily turned from the window. So you included him in the scheme to buy his silence? I had no choice, Derrick shouted desperately. Marcus laughed incredulously. There's always a choice, Derrick. You could have stopped stealing. Vincent examined other names on the documents. This other it's our former accountant, Jennifer Carter. Nathan remembered her. Jennifer also left about a year ago, didn't she? Mrs. Elizabeth nodded sadly. She said she got a promotion at another company. Emily returned to the center of the room. Actually, she left because you were getting too close to discovering the irregularities. Derrick completely broke down. How do you know all this? Because I spoke with each one of these people, said Emily calmly. Marcus was shocked. You spoke with them? When? In the last 3 weeks, explained Emily, while you all thought I was just a waitress observing the company from afar. Nathan shook his head in disbelief. You were actively investigating while working in the cafeteria. I worked in several places, corrected Emily. In the cafeteria, in the snack bar at the office building where Brian works now, at the gym frequented by Jennifer. Vincent was impressed. You planned all this? Mrs. Elizabeth smiled proudly. She truly is Colonel Carter's daughter. He would be very proud. Emily was slightly moved upon hearing this, but quickly regained her composure. Brian and Jennifer are willing to cooperate with the investigation. Derrick stared at her desperately. What did they say? They said you threatened them, revealed Emily, that if they didn't agree to participate in the scheme, you would fabricate evidence to incriminate them alone. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Derrick, you're a monster. Nathan agreed. Using blackmail against your own employees. Vincent shook his head in disgust. And we thought you were just a thief. Derrick tried to justify himself desperately. I was desperate. The company was really in trouble. Mrs. Elizabeth looked at him with contempt. The company was having problems because you created the problems. Emily approached Derrick again. Brian and Jennifer kept copies of all communications they had with you. Derrick grew even paler. What communications? Emails, messages, recordings of conversations, listed Emily. Everything documenting your threats and blackmail? Marcus became interested. They recorded conversations. Brian recorded everything after the first threat, confirmed Emily. Jennifer photographed all suspicious documents before leaving. Nathan was impressed. They were legally protecting themselves. Vincent nodded. Smart people. They knew this would come back to haunt Derrick one day. Derrick was now completely defeated. What do you want from me? Emily sat down again in front of him. I want you to sign a full confession detailing the entire scheme, Marcus supported, and that you commit to returning all the stolen money, Nathan added, and that you provide access to all accounts involved in the scheme. Vincent completed, and that you voluntarily resign from all positions in the company. Derrick looked at each of them, realizing he had no way out. And if I do all this, you won't sue me? Emily was clear. I didn't say I wouldn't sue. I said I wouldn't take it to court immediately. Mrs. Elizabeth explained, the difference is you'll have time to try to repair the damages before facing the consequences. Marcus agreed. It's more than you deserve, considering the severity of what you did. Nathan added, and it's more merciful than you were with Brian and Jennifer. Vincent finalized, accept the offer, Derrick. It's the best offer you're going to get." Derek was silent for several minutes, considering his options. Finally, he looked up. "And my family? My wife and my children?" Emily surprised him with her answer. "Your family doesn't need to pay for your crimes." Marcus looked confused. "How so?" "The house where they live is in his wife's name, bought before the scheme started," explained Emily. "She can keep the house." Nathan became interested. "How do you know that?" "Because I investigated everything," said Emily simply. "Including his family situation?" Vincent asked. "And the children?" "The children don't know anything," confirmed Emily, "and they don't need to know, at least for now." Mrs. Elizabeth was moved by Emily's generosity. "You are being very kind to him." Emily looked directly at Derek. "I'm not being kind. I'm being strategic." Derek stared at her, confused. "Strategic?" "If you cooperate completely," explained Emily, "I guarantee your family won't be financially harmed." Marcus understood the plan. "You want him to cooperate not just out of fear, but out of love for his family." Nathan nodded admiringly. "Smart. Much more effective than just threats." Vincent agreed. "He'll cooperate much better knowing he's protecting the children." Derek seemed to struggle with himself for a few moments. Finally, he sighed deeply. "What exactly do you want me to sign?" Emily stood up and walked to the table. A full confession, detailing every irregular transfer, every person involved, every account used. Mrs. Elizabeth added, "And a commitment to cooperate fully with the audit we will conduct." Marcus specified, "Including access to all your personal and business accounts." Nathan completed, "And full availability to answer any questions that arise during the investigation." Vincent finalized, "And obviously your immediate resignation from any position in the company." Derek nodded slowly. "And in return, my family is protected," Emily confirmed. "Your family will be protected as long as you cooperate completely." Marcus warned, "But if we discover you omitted any important information..." Nathan completed the threat. "Then there will be no more protection." Vincent was direct. "And we will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law." Mrs. Elizabeth went to the computer. "I'll prepare the confession document right now." Derek watched her typing, the reality of the situation finally settling in completely. Can I call my wife?" Emily considered the request. "What do you intend to tell her?" "The truth," said Derek, his voice choked. "That I made serious mistakes and that our life is going to change a lot." Marcus was surprised by the answer. "You're going to tell her everything?" "She deserves to know," admitted Derek, "and she'll find out anyway when I start selling everything to pay back the money." Nathan was slightly moved. "At least you're aware of what you did." Vincent nodded. "It's a start for your redemption." Emily allowed the phone call. "You can call, but keep the conversation general. No specific details about amounts or people involved." Derek picked up the phone with trembling hands. The conversation was short and painful. His wife clearly didn't understand what was happening, but she sensed the gravity of the situation. When he hung up, Derek was visibly shaken. "She said she loves me no matter what, that we'll face this together." Mrs. Elizabeth was touched. "You have a family that loves you, Derek. Don't destroy that too." Marcus agreed. "Use that love as motivation to do the right thing now." Nathan added, "Cooperate fully and perhaps you can still rebuild your life with dignity." Vincent concluded, "But that depends entirely on your actions from now on." Mrs. Elizabeth finished typing the document. "The confession is ready. Do you want to read it before signing?" Derek took the document, reading each line carefully. "It's very detailed." Emily confirmed, "It needs to be. There can be no ambiguities or legal loopholes." Marcus examined the document over Derek's shoulder. "It seems to cover all the important aspects." Nathan agreed. "And it makes clear this is a voluntary confession in exchange for specific considerations." Vincent approved. "Well drafted. It protects both the company's interests and his rights." Derek finished reading and looked at everyone. "If I sign this, there's no going back, is there?" Emily was honest. "There's no going back either way, Mr. Derek. The only difference is how you face the consequences." Mrs. Elizabeth added, with dignity and cooperation or with resistance and more suffering. Marcus was direct. You've already lost everything that mattered professionally. Don't also lose your family's respect. Nathan agreed. And perhaps in the future you can still rebuild something positive in your life. Vincent finalized, but that will only be possible if you do the right thing now. Derek picked up the pen, hesitated for a moment, and then signed the document. There, now I'm officially a confessed man. Emily took the signed document. Now you are officially someone who is trying to make amends for his mistakes. Marcus addressed the other executives. And what do we do now? Nathan was interested. How will we run the company during this transition? Vincent agreed. We have responsibilities to employees, clients, suppliers. Emily surprised them again. You will continue running the company exactly as you did before. Mrs. Elizabeth looked confused. How so? I still need to learn a lot about business administration, admitted Emily. I will need you to teach me. Marcus was surprised. You want us to teach you? Nathan was interested. How would that dynamic work? Vincent asked, what would our exact function be? Emily explained her vision. You continue as directors of your respective areas. I step in as president and learn from you. Mrs. Elizabeth smiled approvingly. A gradual and collaborative transition. Marcus liked the idea. It's sensible. It avoids shock and allows operational continuity. Nathan agreed. And it ensures we don't lose clients during the change. Vincent approved. Smart. It shows administrative maturity. Emily addressed each one specifically. Marcus, I need to completely understand our real finances. Marcus nodded. I'll prepare a detailed report of all financial operations. Nathan, continued Emily, I want to know every operational process, every bottleneck, every opportunity for improvement. Nathan perked up. I can prepare a complete diagnostic of our operations. Vincent, said Emily, I need to understand our market positioning, our competitive strengths and weaknesses. Vincent became interested. I'll do a comprehensive analysis of our commercial situation. Mrs. Elizabeth was moved. Colonel Carter would be proud of your collaborative approach. Derek, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Can I offer some guidance during the transition? Everyone turned to him, surprised. Marcus was the first to react. You want to help after everything you did? Nathan was skeptical. Why should we trust you now? Vincent was direct. What would your real motivation be? Derek looked directly at Emily. Because I destroyed something that was important to your father, maybe I can help rebuild it. Emily considered carefully. What exactly could you offer? Knowledge about specific clients, suppliers, ongoing contracts, listed Derek. Information that could be useful during the transition. Mrs. Elizabeth seemed surprised. Do you really want to help, or are you trying to redeem yourself? Derek was honest. A bit of both, but mostly because it's the right thing to do. Marcus remained skeptical. How can we be sure you don't have ulterior motives? Nathan agreed. You lied to us for years. Why would we trust you now? Vincent was more direct. You might be trying to uncover information to use against us later. Emily interrupted the discussion. He can help, but under strict supervision. Derek accepted immediately. Any supervision you deem necessary, Mrs. Elizabeth suggested. He could provide information in writing without direct access to the systems. Marcus liked the idea. That way, we have his knowledge without security risks. Nathan agreed. And we can verify each piece of information before using it. Vincent approved. It's a safe way to leverage what he knows. Emily made the decision. Very well, Mr. Derek, you will prepare a detailed report on every client, every contract, every important supplier. Derek nodded. I can start today. Marcus specified. We also want your assessment of the operational weaknesses you observed. Nathan added, and practical suggestions for improvements that could be implemented quickly. Vincent finished, and an honest analysis of our real competitive position. Mrs. Elizabeth observed, it will be interesting to see if he really knows the company as well as he claims. Emily addressed everyone. Now we need to discuss the next practical steps. Marcus was interested. What's the #1 priority? Nathan asked. Where do we begin the recovery? Vincent questioned. How do we communicate these changes to employees and clients? Emily had thought of everything. First, we communicate internally to all employees. Total transparency about the change in administration. Mrs. Elizabeth agreed. The employees deserve to know what's happening. Marcus worried. But if we tell them about the irregularities, it could create panic. Nathan agreed. People might become afraid of losing their jobs. Vincent added, or they could leak information to clients and competitors. Emily had considered these possibilities. That's why we'll be transparent but strategic in our communication. Derek offered, May I suggest how to communicate without causing unnecessary alarm? Marcus looked at him suspiciously. You want to manipulate the information again? Nathan agreed. How do we know you're not just trying to protect your reputation? Vincent was direct. Your credibility is at absolute zero. Emily interrupted. Let him speak. We can evaluate the suggestion on its merits. Derek explained. You can say there has been a change in the ownership structure, but that operations continue as normal. Mrs. Elizabeth considered. It's technically true, but not a lie. Marcus analyzed. It maintains stability while we implement the necessary changes. Nathan agreed, and it avoids unnecessary speculation about financial problems. Vincent approved. It protects both employees and clients. Emily accepted the suggestion. We'll do it that way. General meeting tomorrow morning to communicate the change. Mrs. Elizabeth offered. Can I prepare the official statement? Marcus suggested. And I can prepare the financial information to calm any concerns about stability. Nathan added. I'll make sure all operations run normally during the transition. Vincent completed. And I'll speak individually with our key clients. Emily approved all the plans. Excellent. Each one focusing on their area of expertise. Derek tried to contribute again. Can I provide a list of the clients most sensitive to change? Marcus was interested, despite his distrust. What criteria would you use for that classification? Nathan asked. And how do we know your assessment is correct? Vincent was skeptical. You might be trying to make us focus on the wrong clients. Emily decided. Make the list, but we'll validate it with our own analysis. Mrs. Elizabeth suggested. I can compare it with my observations from recent years. Marcus agreed. And I can check the financial history of each mentioned client. Nathan approved. That way, we have multiple perspectives on each situation. Vincent finalized, it's the safest way to leverage his knowledge without risks. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. For the next 2 hours, the group worked intensely on preparing for the transition. Emily demonstrated an organizational ability that impressed even the most experienced executives. She divided responsibilities clearly and established realistic timelines for each stage of the process. Her methodical approach revealed the influence of her father's military training. Marcus was particularly impressed with her understanding of the financial implications of each decision. Are you sure you've never managed a company before? Emily smiled modestly. My father taught me that military logistics principles apply very well to business administration. Nathan agreed. Really, there are many similarities between coordinating military and business operations, Vincent added. And your strategic planning ability is impressive for someone your age, Mrs. Elizabeth became emotional. Colonel Carter always said you would be a natural leader. Derek, observing silently, finally commented, I completely underestimated your capabilities. Marcus looked at him with irony. You've underestimated many things, Derek. Nathan agreed, including the consequences of your actions. Vincent was more direct. And the intelligence of the people you tried to deceive. Emily interrupted before the conversation became too hostile. What's important now is to focus on the company's future, Mrs. Elizabeth agreed. Colonel Carter always said that resentment is a weight that hinders progress. Marcus reflected. That's true. We need to channel our energy into rebuilding. Nathan nodded. and ensure the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Vincent completed, by implementing stricter control systems. Emily had already thought of that. We'll create a permanent internal audit system. Derek offered, can I suggest where to implement these controls based on the weaknesses I explored? Marcus considered the offer. Actually, it would be useful to know exactly where our systems failed. Nathan agreed. To identify vulnerabilities we aren't aware of. Vincent approved. It's like using a former hacker to improve system security. Mrs. Elizabeth was cautious, as long as it's under strict supervision. Emily made the decision. Very well, Derek. That will be part of your detailed report. During the rest of the day, each person worked intensely on their specific tasks. Emily alternated between observing everyone's work and studying the company's documents and processes. Her ability to absorb complex information quickly impressed everyone. In a matter of hours, she already understood the basics of each department. Marcus commented to Nathan during a break, she learns faster than anyone I've ever seen. Nathan agreed. And asks the right questions. She goes straight to what really matters. Vincent joined the conversation. And she's not afraid to admit when she doesn't know something. Mrs. Elizabeth, overhearing, smiled. Colonel Carter always said humility is the beginning of wisdom. At the end of the day, Emily gathered everyone again for a progress assessment. Marcus, what is our real financial situation after deducting all the embezzled money? Marcus presented numbers that were better than expected. Even with the hole, we still have working capital for 6 months of normal operation. Nathan was encouraged. That gives us time to implement the improvements and recover revenue. Vincent agreed, and to renegotiate with any clients we might have lost. Emily addressed Nathan. What are our most critical operational bottlenecks? Nathan presented a detailed list, mainly obsolete equipment and manual processes that could be automated. Marcus quickly calculated the modernization investments will pay for themselves in less than 2 years. Vincent added, and they'll give us significant competitive advantage. Mrs. Elizabeth observed, those are exactly the investments Colonel Carter had planned. Emily addressed Vincent. How is our situation with clients? Vincent reported, better than I feared. Most are willing to stay with us during the transition. Marcus was interested. Did any client express specific concern? Nathan asked, are any contracts at immediate risk? Vincent was honest. 2 large contracts need special attention, but nothing we can't resolve. Emily addressed Derek. Are those 2 contracts on your list of sensitive clients? Derek confirmed. They are, and I can explain exactly why they're concerned. Marcus was interested, despite his distrust. What's your analysis? Nathan agreed. It could be useful to understand their perspective. Vincent approved. As long as we can verify the information. Derek explained. One of them is worried about supply continuity due to our productivity problems. Mrs. Elizabeth confirmed. We really did have some delays in recent months. Marcus analyzed. Caused by the lack of investment in equipment. Nathan completed, which was caused by the diversion of resources to your personal accounts. Vincent went straight to Derek. So you created the problem and now you're pointing out the solution? Emily interrupted before the discussion could escalate. The important thing is to solve the problem, regardless of who caused it. Derek continued. The other client is worried about our financial capacity to honor contractual guarantees. Marcus analyzed. It's a legitimate concern, considering what they discovered about our problems. Nathan agreed. They must be wondering if we have the resources to fulfill long-term commitments. Vincent suggested, perhaps we should provide additional bank guarantees to reassure them. Emily approved. Good idea. Marcus, is that feasible? Marcus did some quick calculations. Given our actual financial situation, yes, we can secure the necessary guarantees. Nathan became animated. This could even open doors to new, larger contracts. Vincent agreed. It would demonstrate our financial solidity to the market. Mrs. Elizabeth observed, it's ironic that the discovery of the problems could result in an improvement of our position. Emily reflected, my father always said that crises reveal opportunities for those who know where to look. Derek commented, Your father really was a wise man. Marcus looked at him with irritation. Now you recognize that after destroying his work? Nathan agreed. It's easy to praise after you've caused all the damage. Vincent was more direct. Your words sound very empty now. Emily intervened again. The past cannot be changed. Let's focus on building the future. Mrs. Elizabeth supported. Colonel Carter always prioritized solutions over lamentations. During the following week, the transition was surprisingly smooth. The transparent yet strategic communication with employees and clients worked better than anyone had expected. Emily demonstrated a natural capacity for leadership that quickly earned the respect of the entire team. Her combination of firmness and humility created a work environment more productive than had existed in years. Marcus commented to Nathan on Friday, "I've never seen the team so motivated." Nathan agreed. She managed to create a feeling of renewal and purpose. Vincent joined the conversation. "And the clients are impressed with her professional demeanor." Mrs. Elizabeth, overhearing, smiled. "Colonel Carter always said that true leadership inspires the best in people." That same week, Derek kept his promise to collaborate completely. His reports were detailed and precise, providing valuable information for the company's reconstruction. His genuine attempt to repair the damage he caused impressed even his harshest critics. Marcus admitted, "I have to acknowledge that he is really trying to help." Nathan agreed. The information he provided about internal processes is very useful. Vincent added, "And his analysis of the weak points is proving valuable for us to implement improvements." Mrs. Elizabeth observed, "Perhaps there is still hope of redemption for him." Emily, however, remained cautious. Collaboration doesn't erase crimes, but it's a start toward reparation. During the second week, they began implementing the first operational improvements. The positive response was immediate and visible. Productivity increased 20% with just simple organizational changes. The employees, finally understanding the company's long-term vision, embraced the changes with enthusiasm. Marcus was impressed with the results. "I never imagined such simple changes could have such a big impact." Nathan agreed. "It's amazing what happens when people know their efforts contribute to a larger goal." Vincent observed, "And when they feel their opinions and suggestions are valued." Mrs. Elizabeth became emotional. "It's like seeing Colonel Carter's dream finally coming true." By the end of the second week, news arrived that completely changed the landscape. 2 important new clients had approached the company to negotiate contracts. Vincent was surprised. They heard about the changes in management and became interested. Marcus analyzed, "Apparently our new stance in the market is attracting positive attention." Nathan got excited. "If we can secure these contracts, our financial situation will become much more comfortable." Emily remained cautious. "We can't accept contracts we're not sure we can fulfill." Mrs. Elizabeth agreed. "Colonel Carter always said it's better to promise less and deliver more than the opposite." During the negotiations with the new potential clients, Emily demonstrated a business maturity that surprised even Vincent, the most experienced sales director. Her honest approach about the company's capabilities and limitations inspired confidence in the clients. One client remarked, "It's rare to find a company that is so transparent about its actual capabilities." The other added, "That gives us much more confidence than exaggerated promises that can't be kept." Vincent was impressed by the reaction. "Your honesty is being seen as a competitive advantage." Marcus agreed. In a market full of exaggerations, transparency really stands out. Nathan observed, "It's a valuable lesson on how to build lasting business relationships." Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. "Colonel Carter always said the truth is the best sales strategy." 3 weeks after taking over the company, Emily received a call that changed everything again. It was from an investigator working on the case of the financial misappropriation. "Miss Carter," said the investigator, "we have important news about the case." Emily met with him in the presence of Marcus, Nathan, Vincent, and Mrs. Elizabeth. Derek was also included in the meeting, as he was the main person involved. The investigator reported, "We managed to trace all the diverted money, and we found something interesting." Marcus was intrigued. "What exactly?" Nathan asked. Were you able to recover the funds? Vincent questioned. Are there other people involved we didn't know about? The investigator surprised everyone. The money wasn't spent as we thought. Mrs. Elizabeth was confused. What do you mean? Emily asked for clarification. Can you be more specific? The investigator showed bank documents. Most of the money still exists, invested in low-risk investments. Derek turned pale. How did you discover this? Marcus moved closer to the documents. Does this mean we can recover almost everything? Nathan got excited. If the money still exists, our financial situation is much better than we thought. Vincent was interested. But why did Derek say he had spent it all? The investigator looked at Derek. That's a question for him to answer. Everyone turned to Derek, waiting for an explanation. He remained silent for several minutes, clearly struggling with himself. Finally, he sighed deeply. I didn't spend the money because I always knew I'd have to return it one day. Marcus was incredulous. You knew you'd be discovered. Nathan agreed. And yet, you kept diverting funds? Vincent was direct. What was your logic? Derek explained with difficulty. I was desperate to maintain a lifestyle I couldn't afford, but deep down I knew I couldn't sustain it forever. Mrs. Elizabeth shook her head. So you were just kicking the problem down the road? Emily analyzed the situation. You were using the company's money as an unauthorized loan? Derek nodded, ashamed. More or less. I had the illusion that I could pay it all back before anyone noticed. Marcus laughed sarcastically. And how exactly did you plan to return $4 million? Nathan agreed, not to mention the interest and adjustments that would be owed. Vincent was skeptical. Your income would never allow for a repayment of that magnitude. Derek admitted. I didn't have a real plan. It was more of a desperate fantasy. The investigator interrupted. There is more important information you all need to know. Everyone paid attention. Emily asked, What information? The accomplices you identified, Brian and Jennifer, said the investigator. They also kept the money invested. They didn't spend it. Mrs. Elizabeth was surprised. All of them kept the money saved? Marcus analyzed. That suggests everyone knew, consciously or not, that they were doing something temporary. Nathan agreed. As if they were just hiding the money, not stealing it permanently. Vincent reflected. It's an interesting psychological distinction, though legally it makes no difference. Emily asked the investigator, Are Brian and Jennifer cooperating with the investigation? The investigator confirmed, Completely. They've provided full access to all accounts and investments. Marcus was interested. What is the total amount that can be recovered? Nathan asked, and in what time frame would that be possible? Vincent questioned, Are there any tax or legal implications for the recovery? The investigator consulted his documents. Considering everyone involved, we can recover approximately $3,700,000. Mrs. Elizabeth calculated quickly. That's over 90% of the diverted amount. Emily was impressed. That would completely change our financial situation. Marcus became animated. With that money back, we could implement all the modernization plans immediately. Nathan agreed. And we'd still have substantial reserves for future growth. Vincent added, Our market position would become much stronger. Derek asked hesitantly, And what would the legal situation be for all of us with this recovery? The investigator explained, Full cooperation and voluntary repayment would be considered significant mitigating factors. Emily was interested. Does that mean there would be no criminal proceedings? Marcus also wanted to know, or that the proceedings would be less severe. Nathan asked, Would there be a possibility of settlements? Vincent questioned, and what kind of penalties would still be applied? The investigator was cautious. I can't guarantee anything, but the justice system tends to be more lenient with those who cooperate fully and repair the damages. Mrs. Elizabeth observed, At least there's hope the consequences won't be devastating. Derek addressed Emily directly. What do you intend to do with this information? Emily considered carefully. I want to recover all the money possible for the company. Marcus supported. That makes the most sense from a business standpoint. Nathan agreed. And it will allow us to implement the necessary improvements, Vincent added, besides ensuring the company's financial stability. Emily continued, but I also want everyone involved to face the appropriate consequences for their actions. Derek asked nervously, what kind of consequences do you consider appropriate? Marcus was interested. Are you thinking of some kind of settlement? Nathan asked, or do you prefer to let the justice system decide completely? Vincent questioned, what would be the best outcome for the company in the long term? Emily explained her position. I believe justice must be served, but in a way that also allows for rebuilding and redemption. Mrs. Elizabeth was moved. Colonel Carter would be proud of your wisdom and compassion. The investigator observed, that's a very mature and balanced position. Derek showed gratitude. I appreciate your consideration, especially after everything I've done. Marcus reflected, it's true that excessively harsh punishments sometimes prevent the recovery of damages. Nathan agreed, and the main objective should be to fix the problems and prevent them from repeating. Vincent added, as long as justice is served in a visible and educational way. Emily turned to the investigator. What would be the process to formalize the return of the money? The investigator explained, we need complete documentation of all amounts, accounts, and investments involved. Marcus offered, I can help with the accounting and tax part of the documentation. Nathan added, and ensure all processes are legally compliant. Vincent completed, and properly communicate the resolution to clients and suppliers. Elizabeth suggested, perhaps we should also inform all employees about the positive resolution. Emily approved all the suggestions. Let's work together to resolve this in the most transparent and efficient way possible. During the following weeks, the process of recovering the misappropriated funds proceeded surprisingly smoothly. The cooperation of everyone involved significantly facilitated the work. Brian and Jennifer met personally with Emily to apologize and explain their actions. Both demonstrated genuine remorse and relief at finally being able to resolve the situation. Brian explained, I never managed to sleep peacefully since I got involved in this. The money seemed to be burning in my hands. Jennifer added, I changed jobs because I couldn't keep working knowing what I had done. The guilt was destroying me. Marcus observed, it's interesting how a guilty conscience affected everyone involved. Nathan agreed. It shows that deep down everyone knew they were doing something wrong. Vincent reflected, maybe that's why no one actually spent the money. Mrs. Elizabeth was moved. At least there is still moral conscience in people. Emily was impressed by the sincerity of the apologies. I accept your apologies and value your cooperation in resolving this situation. During this period, the company continued to prosper under the new leadership. Investments in modernization, now possible with the recovery of the funds, began to show impressive results. Productivity increased 40% in 2 months. Product quality improved significantly. Delivery times were cut in half. Marcus was euphoric with the results. I've never seen such a rapid and positive transformation in a company. Nathan agreed. It's incredible what well-directed investments can achieve. Vincent observed, and the clients are noticing. We have 5 new contract proposals this week. Mrs. Elizabeth became emotional. It's like seeing Colonel Carter's dream coming true at an accelerated pace. Emily, however, remained focused on future challenges. These results are just the beginning. We have much more to achieve. 3 months after taking over the company, Emily received an unexpected proposal. A large business group offered to buy the company for a value significantly higher than it was worth when she inherited it. The proposal came through Vincent, who had been approached by intermediaries. Emily, you need to see this offer. It's an impressive amount. Marcus examined the numbers. It's 3 times the estimated value of the company 6 months ago. Nathan was surprised. They must have noticed our recovery and growth potential. Mrs. Elizabeth worried. But would that mean selling Colonel Carter's legacy? Emily carefully studied the proposal for several days before giving an answer. She spoke with every employee, analyzed all financial and strategic aspects. Her decision surprised everyone. I'm going to refuse the offer. Marcus was shocked. But it's a fortune. You'd be financially set for the rest of your life. Nathan agreed. And you wouldn't have the responsibilities and pressures of running a company anymore. Vincent added, I could study, travel, do anything I wanted. Emily explained her decision. This company isn't just a business to me. It's my father's dream come true. Mrs. Elizabeth was deeply moved. Colonel Carter would be immensely proud of your decision. Marcus reflected, it's true that financial value isn't everything. There are more important values. Nathan agreed. And you're building something much bigger than money. Vincent observed, you're creating jobs, contributing to the community, honoring your father's memory. Emily added, and more importantly, I'm proving that young people can take on responsibilities and make a difference. 2 weeks after this decision, news arrived that completely validated Emily's choice. The company had been selected for a major government project. The project represented not only a multi-million-dollar contract, but also official recognition of the company's technical excellence and reliability. Vincent was euphoric. This contract alone is worth more than the buyout offer we refused. Marcus quickly calculated, and it will guarantee our financial stability for the next 5 years. Nathan got excited, besides opening doors for other similar projects in the future. Mrs. Elizabeth cried with emotion. Colonel Carter always dreamed that the company would participate in projects important for the country. Emily remained modest. It's just recognition of the excellent work of the entire team. During the celebration, Derek appeared unexpectedly at the office. His appearance was very different, simpler, more humble, but visibly more at peace. Marcus greeted him cautiously. Derek, what are you doing here? Nathan showed surprise. We didn't expect to see you around here. Vincent asked directly, is everything all right? You look different. Mrs. Elizabeth observed him with curiosity. You seem more at peace with yourself. Derek addressed Emily directly. I came to thank you and say goodbye. Emily received him courteously. Thank me for what? Marcus became interested. And say goodbye to where? Nathan asked. Are you leaving the city? Vincent questioned. Is there any development in your legal case? Derek explained. The case was resolved with a settlement. I'll perform community service and pay fines, but there will be no prison time. Mrs. Elizabeth was relieved. It's good you managed to resolve it without more serious consequences. Emily showed interest. And where do you plan to go now? Marcus asked, do you have professional plans? Nathan questioned, how will you rebuild your life? Vincent showed curiosity. Is your family all right with all this? Derek smiled for the first time in months. My wife supported me throughout the whole process. We're going to start over in a smaller, simpler town. Mrs. Elizabeth was moved. Sometimes simple new beginnings are the best. Emily asked, and professionally? Marcus was interested. Do you plan to stay in the business field? Nathan questioned, or will you change fields completely? Vincent asked, are your qualifications still valid despite everything? Derek answered, I'm going to work as a freelance consultant for small businesses, help other entrepreneurs avoid the mistakes I made. Emily was impressed. That's an interesting way to use your negatively gained experience for something positive. Marcus agreed. Turning your mistakes into lessons for others is admirable. Nathan approved. And it can really help many people avoid similar problems. Vincent observed. It's a form of redemption through service to others. Mrs. Elizabeth was moved. Colonel Carter always said that the greatest teachers are those who learned from their own mistakes. Derek addressed Emily specifically. What I most want to thank you for is your compassion. You could have completely destroyed me, but you chose to give me a chance at redemption. Emily was modest. Destruction never builds anything. I prefer to focus on construction and reconstruction. Marcus reflected. That's a very wise life philosophy. Nathan agreed. And it shows impressive maturity for someone your age. Vincent added, you are setting a leadership example that will inspire many people. Mrs. Elizabeth cried with pride. Colonel Carter raised an extraordinary daughter. Before leaving, Derek made a final revelation. There's something you all need to know about the buyout offer you received. Everyone paid attention. Emily asked, What about the offer? Marcus became interested. Do you know something we don't? Nathan questioned. Is there something suspicious about that proposal? Vincent asked, how did you know about the offer if you don't work here anymore? Derek explained, I was the one who suggested your company to the group that made the offer. Mrs. Elizabeth was surprised. You? Why? Emily became interested. For what purpose? Marcus asked. Were you trying to harm us in some way? Nathan was more direct. Or was there some benefit for you in that sale? Vincent questioned. What was your real motivation? Derek surprised everyone. I wanted to ensure you had a comfortable financial exit in case the problems I caused became insurmountable. Marcus was dumbfounded. You were trying to help us. Nathan was confused. Even after everything that happened? Vincent shook his head in disbelief. Why would you do that? Mrs. Elizabeth was moved. There was still goodness in your heart despite the mistakes. Emily was deeply touched. I didn't expect that. Derek continued. When I saw how you all worked together to rebuild the company, I realized you didn't need an exit. You were capable of building something much greater. Marcus was emotional. Did you cancel the offer? Nathan asked, or discourage the purchase. Vincent questioned, how exactly did you intervene? Derek admitted, I told them about the company's real potential and suggested they offer a partnership instead of a buyout. Mrs. Elizabeth was surprised. A partnership? Emily became interested. What kind of partnership? Marcus asked, why didn't they tell us about this possibility? Nathan questioned, would it be a beneficial partnership? Vincent became interested. What would the terms be? Derek explained, they would offer capital for expansion in exchange for a minority stake. You would retain full control of the company. Emily analyzed the proposal. That would be very interesting for our growth plans. Marcus agreed. Additional capital without losing autonomy is ideal for any expanding company. Nathan got excited. We could significantly accelerate our modernization projects. Vincent added, and expand into new markets more quickly. Mrs. Elizabeth observed, once again Derek is trying to help, even without any personal benefit. A week later, representatives from the business group returned with a partnership proposal that exceeded all expectations. They offered substantial capital for expansion, market expertise and business connections, while keeping Emily as the majority owner and principal manager. The proposal included clauses guaranteeing the preservation of the company's organizational culture and values, aspects that were fundamental to Emily. Marcus examined all the documents. The terms are exceptionally favorable for us. Nathan agreed. We rarely see partnerships so well structured to benefit the smaller company. Vincent was impressed. They really want a long-term partnership, not just a financial investment. Mrs. Elizabeth observed, it's as if Derek had negotiated with our best interest in mind. Emily made a decision that surprised everyone again. I will accept the partnership, but with one additional condition. Marcus showed interest. What condition? Nathan asked. Something related to company control? Vincent questioned. Or to the financial terms? Emily explained. I want Derek to be hired as a special consultant for small businesses within the group. Mrs. Elizabeth became emotional. You want to help Derek professionally? Marcus was surprised. After everything he did. Nathan seemed confused. Why would you do that? Vincent asked, what would be the benefit for the company? Emily explained her reasoning. Derek demonstrated valuable knowledge about common business problems. His experience, even if gained negatively, can help other business owners. Marcus considered, it's true he understands administrative weak points very well. Nathan agreed, and his near-collapse experience can be educational for others. Vincent reflected. Besides, he demonstrated a genuine attempt at making amends. Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. Colonel Carter always believed in people's capacity for redemption. When the proposal was presented to the group's representatives, they were impressed by the inclusion of Derek as a consultant. His unique experience, having been on both the side of problems and solutions, was seen as a valuable asset. The lead representative commented, "It's impressive to see a young leader demonstrate such strategic vision and human compassion." His colleague added, "This combination of business intelligence and human wisdom is rare at any age." Marcus felt proud. "We work with a truly exceptional leader." Nathan agreed. "She manages to turn problems into opportunities and conflicts into collaborations." Vincent added, "And more importantly, she builds bridges where others would build walls." Mrs. Elizabeth cried with emotion. "Colonel Carter raised a daughter who honors his legacy magnificently." 6 months after taking over the company, Emily organized a celebration party. It was both a celebration of the company's full recovery and a recognition of everyone who contributed to that outcome. The party brought together employees, clients, suppliers, partners, and even Brian, Jennifer, and Derek, who had become respected consultants in their respective fields. Marcus gave an emotional speech. "A year ago, we thought our company was stagnant. Today, we are one of the most prosperous and respected in our sector." Nathan added, "And this is entirely due to the courage, intelligence, and leadership of a 19-year-old young woman who had the audacity to claim what was rightfully hers." Vincent concluded, "Emily didn't just save our company, she transformed it into something greater than it ever was." Mrs. Elizabeth, with tears in her eyes, said, "Colonel Carter is looking down from heaven with a proud smile that lights up all the stars." When it was Emily's turn to speak, she stepped onto the small, improvised stage and looked at all the people present. Her voice, firm but emotional, echoed through the hall. "When I walked into that office 6 months ago," she began, "I wasn't just claiming an inheritance. I was taking on a dream that my father had built with his own hands." A respectful silence fell over the room. "He taught me that a company isn't just a business, it's a family, a community, a legacy that passes from generation to generation." Marcus was moved, remembering Colonel Carter's similar words years before. "My father also taught me that the greatest successes are those built in partnership, with mutual respect and shared goals." Nathan nodded, thinking about how this philosophy had transformed the work environment. "That's why this celebration isn't about me. It's about all of us, about what we've managed to build together." Vincent smiled, remembering all the shared victories of the past months. "It's about second chances, about redemption, about the human capacity to grow and transform." Mrs. Elizabeth wept openly, seeing Colonel Carter in her daughter's posture and words. Emily looked directly at Derek, who was at the back of the hall. "It's about forgiveness, but not forgetting. About justice, but also about mercy." Derek lowered his eyes, still overcome with gratitude and remorse. "My father used to say that a company is like a living organism. If it doesn't grow, it dies. But I learned that growth isn't just financial." The audience hung on every word. "Growth is also human, moral, social. It's about becoming better versions of ourselves." Brian and Jennifer exchanged emotional glances, reflecting on their own journeys of growth. "That's why our company won't just prosper financially. It will be an example that it's possible to do business with integrity, treat people with dignity, and build a better future for everyone." The hall erupted in applause. Marcus, Nathan, and Vincent embraced, moved by the inspiring vision of their young leader. Mrs. Elizabeth approached Emily as she stepped off the stage. "Your father is here with us tonight. I can feel his presence." Emily hugged the secretary who had been her first ally. "He is in every decision we make, in every value we uphold, in every person we help." For the rest of the evening, stories were shared, future plans were discussed, and new dreams were planted. Derek approached Emily at the end of the party. "I don't have enough words to thank you for everything you've done for me." Emily smiled. "You don't need to thank me. You need to keep honoring this second chance you've been given." Marcus, overhearing the conversation, added, "And keep helping other business owners avoid the mistakes you made." Nathan joined the group. "Your experience as a consultant is really making a difference in many people's lives." Vincent agreed. "You've transformed your mistakes into wisdom and your wisdom into service." Mrs. Elizabeth concluded, "That's what Colonel Carter called complete redemption." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 1 year after that celebration, the company had become a case study in business schools across the country. The organizational transformation led by Emily was analyzed as an example of young leadership, participative management, and corporate recovery. Universities invited Emily to give lectures, where she always emphasized that business success should be measured not just in profits, but in lives positively impacted. During one of these lectures, a student asked, "How did someone so young achieve such maturity to handle such complex situations?" Emily answered, "Maturity doesn't come from age. It comes from the experiences we face and the choices we make. My father prepared me for life, not just for business." Another student questioned, "What was the biggest challenge during this transformation?" "The biggest challenge," Emily reflected, "was balancing justice with mercy, firmness with compassion. It's easy to be just firm or just compassionate. The hard part is being both in the right measure." A professor asked, "What advice would you give to young people who want to take on business responsibilities?" Emily smiled. "Don't be afraid of your capabilities, but also don't underestimate the importance of learning from more experienced people. Leadership is about serving, not about commanding." Marcus, who had accompanied Emily to the lecture, felt proud seeing how she inspired the young students. After the lecture, a student approached her privately. "Can I ask a personal question?" Emily agreed. "Of course." "Have you never felt anger or a desire for revenge against those who betrayed your family's trust?" asked the young woman. Emily considered carefully before answering, "Of course I have. I'm human. But my father taught me that anger is a poison we drink, hoping it will hurt others." The student became interested. "How did you overcome those feelings?" "By turning them into energy for building," explained Emily. "Every time I felt anger, I asked myself, will this help me build something better?" The answer was always no. Marcus, listening, commented, "It's one of the most valuable lessons anyone can learn at any age." 2 weeks after that lecture, Emily received a letter that would change her perspective on everything once again. It was from a lawyer representing an international firm that had been hired to investigate irregularities in American companies. The letter revealed surprising information about the true extent of the problem Derek had created at the company. Marcus read the letter along with Emily. "This suggests there was much more money involved than we discovered." Nathan, called to the urgent meeting, examined the documents. And apparently more people involved too. Vincent arrived running when he learned of the new information. What exactly did this investigation uncover? Mrs. Elizabeth, always present in important moments, asked, "Does this change our legal situation in any way?" The lawyer who had brought the letter explained, "Our investigation discovered that the scheme at your company was part of a larger network of irregularities involving several companies in the region." Emily became interested. "Was Derek involved in other companies too?" Marcus asked. "Or were other accountants and lawyers replicating the same schemes?" Nathan questioned. "What is the real extent of this problem?" Vincent wanted to know. "And how does this affect our company specifically?" The lawyer consulted his documents. Derek appears to have been more of a victim than a main organizer. The true leader of the network has not yet been identified. Mrs. Elizabeth was surprised. Derek was manipulated by someone else? Emily reflected. That would explain why he always seemed more desperate than malicious. Marcus agreed. And why he kept the money invested instead of spending it. Nathan added, perhaps he knew he would eventually be discovered. Vincent observed, and maybe that's why he cooperated so completely with us. The lawyer continued, we believe someone was recruiting business owners in financial difficulty and offering solutions that involved these temporary diversions. Emily became interested. Like a kind of business Ponzi scheme, Marcus analyzed, where money from one company was used to cover another's problems. Nathan agreed. And eventually, everyone would be exposed when the scheme collapsed. Vincent reflected, it's more sophisticated and dangerous than we imagined. Mrs. Elizabeth asked, what does this mean for Derek and the others who were involved? The lawyer explained, if we prove they were manipulated, the legal consequences would be significantly less severe. Emily worried, but the person truly responsible is still free. Marcus questioned, and potentially doing the same thing to other companies. Nathan agreed. We need to help the investigation to prevent other people from being harmed. Vincent added, and to ensure justice is fully served. Mrs. Elizabeth observed, once again we are called to do the right thing, even if it's difficult. Emily made a characteristic decision. We will cooperate fully with the investigation. The lawyer was surprised. Even knowing this may reopen issues you've already resolved? Marcus supported Emily. If there are other victims being deceived, we have a moral obligation to help. Nathan agreed. Our experience could be valuable in identifying patterns and methods used, Vincent added. And Derek might have crucial information he doesn't even realize he possesses. Mrs. Elizabeth became emotional. Colonel Carter always said it's not enough to solve our own problems if others continue to suffer. During the following weeks, the company became central to the larger investigation. Emily, Marcus, Nathan, and Vincent provided detailed analyses of how the scheme had worked in their company. Derek was called to testify again, but this time as a cooperating witness in the investigation of larger crimes, not as the main suspect. His cooperation revealed important details about how he had been recruited and manipulated by someone who presented himself as a specialist in business recovery. During his testimony, Derek revealed, "He approached me at a moment of total desperation. Said he knew a way to temporarily solve my financial problems." Marcus asked, "And you didn't suspect the offer?" Nathan questioned, "Didn't it seem too good to be true?" Vincent wanted to know, how did he justify the scheme as being legal? Derek explained, he said it was a common practice among experienced business owners, a kind of informal loan between companies. Mrs. Elizabeth shook her head. He exploited your inexperience and desperation. Emily analyzed, and he probably used the same approach with other business owners in similar situations. The lead investigator became interested. Can you describe this person physically? Marcus asked, or remember any specific detail about him? Nathan questioned. Were there other contacts besides the in-person meetings? Vincent wanted to know. And do you know if he was working with other people? Derek provided a detailed description and revealed he had kept some documents and business cards from the supposed consultant. The documents revealed a complex network involving shell companies, dishonest accountants, and even some bank employees. Mrs. Elizabeth was impressed. It's much more elaborate than we imagined. Emily reflected. And it explains why it was so difficult to detect the irregularities initially. Marcus agreed. They created a system that looked legitimate on the surface, Nathan added, and they took advantage of the natural trust among business owners. Vincent observed, it's a particularly cruel form of crime because it exploits people who are already in trouble. During the investigation, they discovered that at least 12 companies in the region had been affected by the same scheme. Some were still being manipulated without knowing it. The revelation shocked the local business community. Newspapers and specialized magazines covered the case extensively, highlighting both the sophistication of the scheme and the exemplary response of Emily's company. A journalist interviewed Emily. How do you feel knowing your company was instrumental in uncovering a scheme that was harming so many other companies? Emily replied, I feel grateful that we had the courage to investigate our own problems deeply. Sometimes, solving our own problems completely helps solve larger problems. The journalist asked, what lesson can other business owners learn from your experience? That transparency and honesty, even when painful, are always better than trying to hide problems, said Emily. Hidden problems grow and multiply. Marcus, present at the interview, added, and that it's important to have control systems that prevent any single person from having too much power over finances. Nathan complimented. Furthermore, a healthy skepticism of offers that seem to solve complex problems in a very simple way. Vincent concluded, and most importantly, seek reliable professional help when there are difficulties, instead of accepting solutions of dubious origin. Mrs. Elizabeth, moved, observed, Colonel Carter would be proud to see how his company has become a beacon of integrity for other businesses. 3 months later, when the larger investigation concluded with the arrest of those truly responsible for the scheme, Emily organized a conference for business owners in the region. The goal was to share lessons learned and help other companies protect themselves from similar schemes. The conference attracted over 300 business owners, accountants, lawyers, and business students. Emily opened the event. "We are here not to celebrate the discovery of crimes, but to build a stronger and more transparent business community." Marcus presented the financial aspects. "We will show exactly how to identify red flags in suspicious financial operations." Nathan explained the operational controls and how to implement systems that protect your companies from internal and external manipulation. Vincent addressed the commercial aspects, as well as how to maintain business relationships based on trust but protected by proper controls. Mrs. Elizabeth, representing the perspective of administrative staff, spoke about how employees can be trained to identify and report irregularities without fear of retaliation. During the conference, Derek gave a special presentation on how business owners in distress can be vulnerable to fraudulent proposals. His presentation was deeply personal and educational. "I was desperate and accepted a proposal that seemed to solve all my problems. Desperation makes us blind to obvious signs of danger." A business owner from the audience asked, "How can we distinguish between legitimate help and fraudulent schemes when we are under pressure?" Derek replied, "Always ask, if it's so good, why isn't it widely known and practiced? And always seek second opinions from professionals you already know and trust." Another business owner questioned, "What if the financial situation is truly desperate?" "Then seek transparent professional help," said Derek. "Lawyers, accountants, consultants with established reputations. Real solutions to real problems take time and effort." Brian and Jennifer also participated, explaining how honest professionals can be coerced into participating in schemes through blackmail or threats. Brian explained, "When I found myself involved, I thought I had no choice. But there is always a choice. We should have sought legal help immediately." Jennifer added, "The fear of consequences stopped us from doing the right thing, but the consequences of not doing the right thing were much worse." At the end of the conference, a mutual support network was established among business owners in the region, with regular meetings to share experiences and warnings about suspicious practices. Emily was elected coordinator of the network. "Our goal is to create a community where business owners can seek honest help when facing difficulties, instead of becoming vulnerable to exploiters." Marcus volunteered to coordinate the financial aspects. "We will create a database of reliable professionals who can help with different types of business crises." Nathan took on the operational aspects and developed standard internal control protocols that any company can implement. Vincent became responsible for the commercial aspects, as well as maintaining a log of alerts about suspicious schemes that appear in the region. Mrs. Elizabeth volunteered to coordinate employee training and ensure everyone knows how to report suspicions safely and anonymously. A year and a half after taking over the company, Emily was sitting in her office, the same one where it all began, reviewing reports of the company's impressive growth and the success of the business support network. Marcus entered with numbers that surprised her. "Our growth this year was 80%, and it's not just financial growth. Our reputation in the market has never been higher." Nathan arrived shortly after, and the support network has already helped 15 companies avoid problematic situations similar to ours. Vincent joined in with more good news. "We've received 3 expansion proposals for other states. Business people from other regions want to implement models similar to ours." Mrs. Elizabeth entered carrying a special letter, and this arrived today. A letter from the governor recognizing our company as an example of corporate social responsibility. Emily read the letter, moved. "It says here that our company is cited as an example of how problems can be transformed into solutions that benefit the entire community." Marcus said proudly, "It's the official recognition of what we all feel, that we've done something truly special here." Nathan agreed. "We turned a crisis into an opportunity for growth, not just for us, but for the entire region." Vincent added, "And we created a legacy that goes far beyond the company's profits." Mrs. Elizabeth cried with emotion. "Colonel Carter couldn't be prouder. You've honored not just his memory, but his deepest values." At that moment, Emily stood up and walked to the window, the same window where she had stood on the first day, observing the city and imagining the future. Now, looking at the same view, she saw not just a city but a community where she had made a real difference in the lives of hundreds of people. "You know what's most amazing?" she said, turning to her colleagues. "When I first entered this room, I was only thinking about recovering what was mine." Marcus approached. "And you ended up creating something much bigger than any inheritance." Nathan agreed. "You built your own legacy that adds to your father's." Vincent observed. "And you inspired a whole new generation of business leaders." Mrs. Elizabeth concluded, "You proved that age is just a number when you have heart, intelligence, and courage." Emily smiled, feeling her father's presence in that moment. "He always said that true success is measured by the positive difference we make in people's lives," Marcus agreed. "And by his standards, we are all tremendously successful." Nathan added, "Not just financially, but humanly." Vincent completed, "And our story will inspire others for a long time." Mrs. Elizabeth observed, "And it all started with a courageous young woman who refused to accept that things were as they seemed." 6 months later, on a sunny Monday morning, Emily arrived at the office to find a surprise waiting for her. Derek was in the lobby, but he wasn't alone. With him were 3 other business people she didn't know. Marcus, Nathan, and Vincent were already there, talking animatedly with the group. Mrs. Elizabeth approached Emily. "They came from Boston specifically to meet you." Emily was intrigued. "To meet me? Why?" Derek approached with a genuine smile. "Because they faced situations similar to ours and want to implement the same model of recovery and transparency." One of the business people, a middle-aged man named Brandon, explained, "Our company discovered irregularities similar to yours, but we didn't know how to handle the situation." The second business person, a woman named Victoria, added, "We heard about how you turned a crisis into an opportunity, and we want to learn." The third, a young entrepreneur named Tyler, concluded, "Especially how to balance justice with recovery, punishment with redemption." Emily was moved by the visit. "We are honored to share our experience with you." Marcus offered, "I can explain all the financial aspects of our approach." Nathan agreed, "And the operational procedures we implemented." Vincent added, "Plus the communication strategies with clients and suppliers." Mrs. Elizabeth finished, "And how we kept the team motivated throughout the whole process." Throughout that entire day, the visitors observed every aspect of the company's operations. They asked detailed questions, took extensive notes, and were impressed with the organizational culture that had been created. Brandon commented, "It's impressive how you managed to maintain high productivity during such a major crisis." Victoria observed, "And how you turned employees into allies instead of leaving them afraid." Tyler added, "Your transparency created trust instead of panic." Derek, proud of everyone's progress, said, "And you can see that redemption is possible when there is a genuine will to change." At the end of the day, Emily organized a closing meeting with all the visitors. "What we most want to convey," she said, "is that there is no magic formula. Every situation is unique and requires specific solutions." Marcus agreed. "But there are universal principles that work: transparency, collaboration, a focus on people." Nathan added, "And the courage to face problems head-on instead of trying to hide them." Vincent completed, "Along with the patience to build lasting solutions instead of seeking quick fixes." Mrs. Elizabeth concluded, "And never forgetting that companies are made of people, and people deserve dignity even when they make mistakes." Brandon was moved. "You have given us hope that we can overcome our crisis without destroying lives in the process." Victoria agreed. "And a practical model for how to implement this philosophy." Tyler added, "Most importantly, you proved it's possible to do the right thing and still achieve business success." Derek observed, "And that mistakes can be turned into lessons that help other people." 6 months after that visit, Emily received letters from the 3 entrepreneurs from Boston. All had successfully implemented models similar to hers, resolving their crises with integrity and achieving sustainable growth. Brandon wrote, "Our company not only recovered, but is now seen as an example of transparency in our region." Victoria reported, "We managed to turn our biggest problem into our greatest competitive strength." Tyler shared, "Our recovery story has attracted the best talent in the region who want to work for a company with clear values." Marcus was emotional reading the letters. "We are creating a national movement of ethical companies." Nathan agreed. "Our experience is multiplying and helping people we've never even met." Vincent observed, "It's the kind of impact that transcends the boundaries of a single company." Mrs. Elizabeth cried with pride. "Colonel Carter must be radiant seeing how his values are spreading across the country." In that moment, Emily fully understood what her father had tried to teach her about true legacy. "He always said a leader's greatest success is to develop other leaders," she reflected. "Now I understand it's not just about developing successors, but about spreading values that make everyone better." Marcus agreed. "And you are doing it on a scale he probably never imagined." Nathan added, "Inspiring not just our team, but entrepreneurs from across the country." Vincent observed, "And creating a new standard for how to do business with integrity." Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. "You surpassed even the most ambitious dreams he had for you." 2 years after taking over the company, at a special anniversary event celebrating the organizational transformation, Emily was surprised by unexpected visitors. Brian and Jennifer arrived accompanied by a delegation of business people from 5 different states, all wanting to meet personally the young leader who had inspired their own organizational transformations. The party, which had started as an internal celebration, turned into a national gathering of business people committed to ethical practices. Brian, now a respected corporate governance consultant, gave an emotional speech. "2 years ago, I was too ashamed to show my face at business events. Today I am a sought-after speaker on business ethics." Jennifer, who had become a specialist in financial controls, added, "And I, who almost abandoned accounting out of shame, now help other companies implement systems that prevent the problems we faced." Derek, present as a company consultant, concluded, "We all discovered that our worst moments could become our greatest contribution to the world." A business person from New York commented, "It's impressive to see how a local crisis turned into a national movement." A businesswoman from California observed, "And how young leaders are changing the face of the American business community." An executive from Washington, D.C., added, "You proved it's possible to grow rapidly while maintaining high ethical standards." Marcus said proudly, "And we showed that transparency is a competitive advantage, not an obstacle." Nathan agreed, "Our productivity is higher today than when we were hiding problems." Vincent added, "And our reputation has opened doors we never imagined we could reach." Mrs. Elizabeth, moved by so much recognition, observed, "Colonel Carter planted a seed that grew into an entire forest." During the main speech of the evening, Emily reflected on the entire journey. "When I walked into that office 2 years ago, people laughed because a 19-year-old claimed to own a company." The audience paid full attention. "Today, that same youth is seen as our greatest advantage because it allowed us to question established practices and seek innovative solutions." Marcus was moved remembering that first day. "I learned that leadership has no age. It takes courage, vision, and determination to do the right thing." Nathan agreed. "And that experience is valuable, but it cannot be used as an excuse to perpetuate questionable practices." Vincent added, "Some of us needed a young leader to remind us of our own values." Mrs. Elizabeth concluded, "And we all need people who inspire us to be better versions of ourselves." Emily continued, "My father taught me that companies are human organizations before they are economic entities. They are communities where people spend most of their lives." The audience nodded, recognizing the depth of the observation. "That's why we have a responsibility not only for profits, but for the well-being of everyone who trusts us, employees, clients, suppliers, the community." Derek was moved, remembering how he had lost sight of those values. "And when we lose that humanistic perspective, we also lose our moral compass." Brian agreed. "It's easy to get lost in the numbers and forget that behind every number there are real people." Jennifer added, "And that our decisions affect not only balance sheets but lives, families, dreams." A business person from the audience asked, "How do you maintain that humanistic perspective in a highly competitive market?" Emily answered, "By understanding that real competitiveness comes from motivated people, ethical processes and solid relationships, not from questionable shortcuts. Marcus supported, "We discovered that doing the right thing not only made us more competitive, but created advantages that our competitors can't easily replicate." Nathan agreed, because replicating systems is easy, but replicating culture and values is much harder. Vincent added, "And clients, employees and partners prefer to work with companies they respect and trust." Mrs. Elizabeth observed, "Colonel Carter always said that reputation takes years to build, seconds to destroy, and decades to rebuild." At the end of that extraordinary night, when the last guests had left, the original team gathered in the office where it had all begun. Emily looked at each person who had been by her side throughout the entire journey. "Do you know what impresses me the most about all of this?" Marcus was interested. "What?" Nathan asked. "The company's growth." Vincent questioned, "The national impact we achieved?" Mrs. Elizabeth waited curiously for the answer. Emily smiled. "It's that we achieved all of this without compromising our values. We proved it's possible to grow by doing the right thing." Marcus was moved, and without leaving anyone behind, even those who made mistakes had a chance at redemption. Nathan agreed, "We turned adversaries into allies, problems into opportunities." Vincent added, "And a personal crisis into a national movement for business transformation." Mrs. Elizabeth cried with pride. "Colonel Carter always said that the true test of character isn't what we do when everything is fine, but how we react when everything seems lost." Emily reflected, "And we chose to build instead of destroy, to include instead of exclude, to educate instead of merely punish." Marcus observed, "We created a model that can be replicated by any company facing similar crises." Nathan agreed, "And we proved that young people can take on great responsibilities when they have proper support and guidance." Vincent added, "Besides showing that experience and youth complement each other when there is mutual respect." Mrs. Elizabeth concluded, "And that the most important legacy we can leave are the values we pass on and the people we inspire." 3 years after that first transformative morning, Emily was again in the same office, but now as a special guest at a ceremony organized by the local business association. The ceremony was to officially designate the company as a center of excellence in corporate governance and social responsibility, a recognition that would turn it into a national reference for other companies. The association president gave an emotional speech. In just 3 years, this company transformed from an organization with serious internal problems into a national model of business excellence. Marcus, now recognized as one of the best financial directors in the region, was proud of the recognition. Nathan, whose operational methods were being studied in universities, smiled with emotion. Vincent, who had become a national speaker on business ethics, felt fulfilled. Mrs. Elizabeth, now a retired consultant but always present for important moments, cried with joy. The president continued, "But more important than the impressive growth and profit numbers, this company demonstrated that it is possible to reconcile business success with social responsibility." Derek, present as a special guest and now a prosperous business ethics consultant, was moved by the words. Brian and Jennifer, also present and recognized as experts in their fields, exchanged looks of gratitude. "This transformation," continued the president, "began with the courage of a 19-year-old young woman who refused to accept that irregularities were normal or inevitable." The audience applauded warmly. Emily Carter taught us that leadership is not about age, authority, or power. It's about character, vision, and determination to do the right thing. When it was Emily's turn to speak, she approached the microphone with the same simplicity and authenticity that had characterized her from day one. 3 years ago, she began, I was a 19-year-old with a military backpack, camouflage clothes, and a dream to honor my father's memory. The audience smiled, many recalling the images from that first day which had become iconic in the region. Today, at 22, I am a businesswoman who learned that the greatest successes come when we manage to lift others up with us. Marcus was moved, remembering the entire shared journey. This recognition is not mine, continued Emily. It belongs to every person who had the courage to choose transparency over secrecy, collaboration over destructive competition. Nathan nodded, acknowledging his own journey of growth. It belongs to those who believed an inexperienced young woman could lead, and who taught me everything I know about business administration. Vincent was proud to have been part of that mutual education, and it belongs especially to those who made mistakes, recognized those mistakes, and transformed their negative experiences into positive contributions for the world. Derek, Brian, and Jennifer were deeply moved. My father used to say that a company is like a family, continued Emily, and in true families no one is abandoned when they make mistakes. Everyone is helped to grow and become better versions of themselves. Mrs. Elizabeth wept openly, seeing Colonel Carter in every word from her daughter. That is why this Center of Excellence will not just be a place where companies come to learn management techniques, said Emily. It will be a place where people come to learn how to build more humane, more ethical, and more prosperous organizations. The audience rose in prolonged applause. Marcus approached the microphone. As the financial director, I can confirm that our humanistic approach not only did not harm our profitability, it increased it by 200%. Nathan added, and our productivity grew 150% when employees began to feel valued and heard. Vincent completed, furthermore, our customer retention rate is 98%, the highest in the sector. Mrs. Elizabeth approached with one last surprise, and there is something more you all need to know about this entire success. Everyone paid curious attention. Colonel Carter left a letter to be opened only when the company became nationally recognized, she revealed, taking a sealed envelope from her bag. Emily was emotional. A letter? After all this time, Marcus stepped closer. What does it say? Nathan asked. How did he know this would happen? Vincent questioned. How long have you been keeping this letter? Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. 3 years and 2 months, since the day he passed away. With trembling hands, Emily opened the envelope and began to read aloud. My dear Emily, if you are reading this letter, it means you have managed not only to save our company, but to transform it into something greater than I ever dreamed. The audience remained in absolute silence. I know that when you take over the company, you will find problems I left unresolved. Not out of negligence, but because I knew you would need challenges to discover your own strength. Marcus was surprised. He knew about the financial problems? Nathan was confused, and he intentionally left them for her to solve. You always had the intelligence and courage necessary to lead, but true leadership only develops when we face real adversity and make difficult choices. Vincent began to understand. He was preparing a leadership test. Mrs. Elizabeth confirmed, Colonel Carter always said that leaders are born from crises, not from comfort. I am certain that you not only solved the problems, but turned enemies into allies, failures into lessons, and a family business into an example for the country. Emily paused, too emotional to continue for a moment. Derek stood from the audience. He was right. You transformed us all. Brian agreed. You taught us that redemption is possible when there is a genuine will to change. Jennifer added, and that mistakes can become our greatest contribution to the world. Emily continued reading. Therefore, my final lesson for you is this. A leader's true success is not measured by what they manage to build, but by what they inspire others to build. Marcus reflected. That's exactly what she did. Inspired transformations in companies across the country. Nathan agreed, and created a movement that goes far beyond our company. Vincent added, influenced an entire generation of young entrepreneurs. Keep building bridges where others would build walls. Keep believing in the human capacity for growth and transformation. And never forget that a prosperous company is one that makes the entire community prosper alongside it. Mrs. Elizabeth was moved. These are words she has lived by every day. I know you will make our company grow in ways I cannot even imagine, but more importantly, I know you will use that growth to make the world a better place. Emily paused again, visibly touched by her father's words. My final advice, never stop questioning, never stop learning, and never stop believing that one determined person can change the world. because you have already proven you can." The audience erupted in emotional applause. "With all my infinite love and pride, your father who always believed in you, Colonel William Carter." Marcus approached Emily. "He knew exactly who you would become." Nathan agreed, and created the perfect conditions for it to happen. Vincent observed, "It was the final leadership gift he gave you." Mrs. Elizabeth cried with emotion. "He planned it all so you would discover your own strength." Emily, with tears in her eyes but a steady voice, addressed the microphone one last time. "Daddy, wherever you are, I hope I have honored your trust, and I promise to keep building upon the foundation you laid." The ceremony ended with a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. Later, when everyone had left and the original team gathered in the office for the last time as it was originally configured, Emily made an announcement that surprised everyone. "You know, our company has grown beyond all expectations," she said. Marcus agreed. "We never imagined reaching this level of recognition," Nathan added, "and impacting so many other organizations." Vincent observed, "We've created something that will last for generations." Mrs. Elizabeth smiled. "Colonel Carter would be proud of every achievement." "That's why," continued Emily, "the time has come to take the next step." Everyone became interested. Marcus asked, "What next step?" Nathan questioned, "Some expansion plan?" Vincent showed curiosity. "A new line of business?" Mrs. Elizabeth waited patiently. Emily smiled. "I am going to transform our company into a cooperative." Silence filled the room for a few moments. Marcus was the first to react. "A cooperative? That means that—" Nathan finished. "All employees become partners?" Vincent asked. "And you stop being the sole owner?" Mrs. Elizabeth was moved. "It's the natural evolution of everything we've built." Emily explained. "Our success was built collectively. It's only fair it be shared collectively too." Marcus analyzed the implications. "It's a courageous and innovative decision." Nathan agreed, "and consistent with all the values we stand for." Vincent observed, "It will definitively consolidate our participatory management model." Mrs. Elizabeth cried with pride. "Colonel Carter always believed in the strength of collective work." "Furthermore," added Emily, "I want to establish a foundation to support young entrepreneurs who want to build businesses based on ethical values." Marcus got excited. "Using our experience to guide other transformations." Nathan agreed. "And ensuring these lessons multiply indefinitely." Vincent approved. "It's the way to institutionalize everything we've learned," Mrs. Elizabeth observed. "It's like planting an entire forest from the seed that Colonel Carter planted." 6 months later, at a ceremony that brought together business people from across the country, the transformation of the company into a cooperative and the launch of the Colonel Carter Foundation for Ethical Business Development were made official. The event marked the symbolic end of Emily's individual journey as a young heiress and the beginning of a new phase as the leader of a national movement. In her closing speech, she reflected on the entire journey. 4 years ago, I was a 19-year-old young woman who walked into an office to claim an inheritance." The audience smiled, remembering the story that had become legendary. "Today, at 23, I understand that the true inheritance my father left me was not a company, but a set of values that can transform any organization." Marcus, Nathan, and Vincent, now co-op partners, were proud of the leader they had helped shape. "And the greatest gift I can give the world is to ensure these values keep spreading, inspiring new generations of ethical leaders." Derek, now the Foundation's director, was moved to see how his own redemption had become part of something greater. Brian and Jennifer, the Foundation's specialized consultants, reflected on how their negative experiences had been transformed into positive contributions. "That is why this foundation is not the end of our story," said Emily. "It is the beginning of thousands of new stories of business transformation." Mrs. Elizabeth, now a lifetime advisor to the foundation, cried with joy seeing Colonel Carter's legacy multiplying infinitely. "And every company we transform, every leader we inspire, every community we benefit, will be a living tribute to the memory of a man who believed that business can be a force for good in the world." The audience rose in a final ovation that echoed not only in the auditorium, but in hundreds of other companies across the country that had already been touched by this philosophy. At that moment, Emily understood completely that her journey had ended exactly where it should, not with a rich young woman who inherited a company, but with a mature leader who had created her own legacy based on the values her father taught her. And as she looked at the audience full of hopeful faces, young entrepreneurs, experienced leaders, employees of all ages, people who had made mistakes and found redemption, she knew that Colonel Carter was finally at peace, knowing that his daughter had not only honored his memory, but surpassed it. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this incredible story of transformation and overcoming. Do you believe Emily made the right decisions in giving a second chance to those who had made mistakes? And what did you think of Derek's evolution? Can people really change when they find the right motivation? Leave your honest opinion in the comments and share your own experiences about second chances and redemption. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.